Hey Oz, we're here at SYNTHFEST, Expert Sleepers. It seems like every time we come and see you, you've got something new, and you have today, right?
I certainly have. I have the ES-9, which is the latest in my series of digital audio modules for connecting computers and modulars in perfect harmony. So the ES-9 kind of builds on, I guess, what the ES-8 was. The ES-8 was a USB audio interface.
Let me help you.
Thank you. The ES-9 is a 16-in, 16-out USB audio interface in Eurorack. It has 14 inputs, 8 outputs on 3.5mm jacks. It has a dedicated pair of main outputs on big chunky 1/4-inch jacks. It has a dedicated headphone socket on a 1/4-inch jack, a pair of SPDIF ports, dedicated expander around the back for the ES-5, which is there. All of the inputs and outputs here are DC coupled, so they can be used for audio or CV. So I'm using that here with Live. I've got a ton of sound sources coming in on different channels for processing, for mixing. If I want to, I can do a multi-track recording to 14 stems of all the inputs in the software. That's being mixed in Live, back out to the headphones, back out to the main outputs. I can take a separate mix for the headphones if I want. I can take audio from Live, send it out to the modular for processing, but I can also do that with...
Totally makes sense. I mean, because it's otherwise it's aggregate devices and all sorts of mess, isn't it? So yeah.
It basically lets you do everything with just a single device. If you want to go to a gig, you've got your modular case, you've got your laptop, USB cable, out to the PA, out to your headphones, you're all done.
Are they balanced, those
balanced 1/4-inch outputs,
nice.
Yes. And because all the outputs and inputs are CV DC coupled, you can use them with things like CV tools and Live I've got going on here, or Silent Way that I do, or Max MSP, or something like VCV Rack. I mean, conceptually, I've got very little going on here, but say this in Rack is your audio interface, which represents the ES-9, exactly, 16 in, 16 out. Patch your software LFO out to the modular, pops out here, attach your hardware LFO into the ES-9, it pops out here in VCV, and using the oscilloscope, I'll just wiggle that and you can see it changing on the scope. So it's complete bi-directional integration, CV or audio. It's all you need. You don't need another audio interface as well. It's all in there.
And so is it class compliant and all that sort
yeah,
of business?
Yeah, it's USB 2 class compliant, so it works on Mac or Linux without a driver. There's a driver for Windows. Yeah, and it should be out next week, ideally.
Oh wow, okay. And what sort of price point are you aiming
to?
We're
talking £499.
And is that, and to get the full 16I/O, what else do you need?
Nothing. That's it.
Oh, right. So there's 16I/O on the. Oh, I see. Right.
Yes.
Sorry,
if you count everything up, I mean, so 14 inputs plus SPDIF is easy to count that 16. Then 8 outputs plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, and then another 2 for the ES-5 is a total of 16.
Right.
So using the ES-5, you can throw another 48 outputs on there as well.
Just in case.
Yeah, for ES-5, triggers, gates, clocks, whatever, and then you can expand out with my other expansion modules, which I won't go into. They've been out for a while.
So the core of it, that can run everything basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's the sample rate it runs at maximum?
It goes up to 96 kHz, 24-bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you. Yeah.
So are you saying this is a sort of the obvious culmination of it, because you've been using one interface for CV/I/O and another interface for audio.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I personally, this is not my trade show rig. This is my live performance rig. I have personally been out with this in my ES-9 gigging, and it's just everything you need. You just bring the modular, you plug it into the PA, plug your headphones in if you want to listen to something, plug in your laptop or your iPad, works just as well.
Is that USB-C or a micro?
USB-C.
Ah, okay.
So that will plug into, it's going through a hub, which is why you can't see it there, or that will go into an iPad. And then if you want to bring other stuff into it, while I'm here, so I've got my little kalimba here, contact mic, that's running into my little Mikey module, which probably that wasn't out this time last year, but it's been out for a little while.
I think we might have seen it at...
I think you've seen it. So this is my mic preamp. So if you've got the ES-9 and you think, oh, but how am I going to bring in my microphone or my guitar or whatever, then this module exists. So I'm using that here to bring in the contact mic and bring it into the ES-9. It's got phantom power on it. The other day at a gig I used this to phantom power an active DI box and get a feed of the guitarist signal into the ES-9 and process that through the modular as well. So yeah, total integration.
So do you think there's, I mean, at what point does it become, that you could use those inputs and outputs to kind of for real recall? Because I mean, that's the big question with modular.
Yeah.
We want, because people who use modular want the non-repeatability.
Yeah.
But if you're gigging, you don't want to find that your set's been dismantled because your 2-year-old has pulled all the leads out or turned the knobs or whatever.
No. Well, I don't know. Most of my gigging is semi-improvised, so that's not actually the end of the world for me. But I don't know. I mean, however much CV output you've got, you haven't got recallability because you haven't got the patching and you haven't got the knob positions.
Yeah.
So
I suppose if you start with everything at zero, so there's a zero position. The other thing I was going to ask as well is, do you need the full sample rate and bit depth to do the DC coupled outputs of CV, or can you use kind of reduced bandwidth to handle?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's the way the expansion modules work with the ES5 and the ESX8 CV, which is the CV expander. It's slightly bit reduced, lower sample rate for CVs, which is how I get all those extra channels through the 2 audio channels.
Right.
But,
okay.
Yeah, it's good enough for most CV purposes, and for the joy of something like the ES5 for triggering, especially drums. I mean, I've got this one connected up to 2 of the tip-top modules, so they've got a gate and an accent in each. So that's two outputs you need for every drum module. So you can very rapidly run out of outputs unless you've got something like the ES5. The thing I love about, or the thing I shout about using audio like this to trigger these drum modules is by triggering them from audio, these things can be truly simultaneously triggered if that's what you want. If you're using MIDI,
absolute bang on, yeah.
Exactly. If you're using MIDI, not only is the timing a bit sloppy, but it's always sequential. So you would never actually be able to have a bass drum and a clap hit at exactly the same moment.
So for instance, if you want to layer bass drums, then you're
Exactly.
right on it, yeah.
Whereas with this, because it's going through a digital audio system, all those outputs are changing at exactly the same moment, which is perfect. And then having the extra outputs for the accent, you have all that output all coming through the one system.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Oz.
Thank you for stopping by. Cheers.